That clock is right on. Good to go, Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Thank you. Before we get into tonight's meeting, Council, I was hoping you could join me in a quick moment of silence and memory of Prince Philip, life partner and consort to our Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you. Thank you. Prince Andrew and Harry, remember the grandfathers having an infectious sense of adventure, a mischievous sense of humor, master of the barbecue, legend of banter, and cheeky right till the end. Something we should all strive for. And to that, I will now call this evening's Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 council meeting to order. First item on the agenda, item 2.1, adoption of the agenda. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, any additions? All in favor? Carried. Item 3.1, adoption of the previous minutes being March 23rd, 2021. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carried. No delegations this evening. Anything out of the reading file? Councillor Blanchette.
Did we not discuss this BC Utilities Commission street lighting and send a letter? We did, didn't we?
We were going to come, I believe, and Mr. Robinson can remind me, I believe we were going to look at what kind of budgetary hit that would have on communities of our size.
Okay.
And then come back with something.
I believe it's actually factored into the budget already.
Oh,
Yes.
there we are.
Okay, so do we know
What is the hit?
what the, yeah,
I don't know, let's see if Director of Finance, would you be able to respond to that?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I believe it was approximately 4,000 a year, but I would have to double check and I can bring a report back at the next council meeting.
4,000?
Okay.
Annually.
Okay.
And she'll report back next meeting.
and the other thing was I just wanted to reiterate the vaccination for Valemount here is April 20th to the 23rd. It's the phone line is open 7 to 7 daily, and the phone number is 1-866-481-2175. And that was everything that I wanted to report.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
I believe also we've already expressed our support, have we, for the 988 crisis line? It was a previous, right?
We have. Okay. Councillor Pearson.
My issues are covered.
Thank you. Thank you. I wrote a letter about 10 days ago. Anything else, Councillor McLean?
I wondered if we had any taste for supporting the city of Prince George's letter about the opioid crisis. I would like to move that we write a letter of support, asking that the government of Canada to declare the overdose crisis a national public health and immediately seek input from the people most affected by this crisis as worded in their letter.
Seconder, Councillor Blanchette. Discussion? All in favor? Carries. Thank you, Councillor McLean, that's good. Last call. On to administrative reports, 8.1, municipal line painting, request for quotes. We have a recommendation here that staff negotiate a 3-year contract with an option to renew a further 2 with Andesite Holdings Limited, doing business as Yellowhead Pavement Marking Incorporated for the purposes of providing municipal line painting. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion?
Now I know what DBA means. I thought that was part of the name.
Never too young.
There you go.
All in favor? Carried. 8.2, Northern Development Initiative Trust Housing Needs Assessment Program. Recommendation here to staff be authorized to apply for $10,000 to the NDIT Housing Needs Assessment Program. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, discussion. All in favor? Carried. And 2, that council provide a resolution of support for the NDIT Housing Needs Assessment Program application. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carried. 8.3, Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives and Affected Areas Program Funding Recommendations. Several recommendations here, one at a time. First, under the Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society, are there any recusals and or anybody under the first program? Okay. So that first recommendation that CBT.
Sorry, I just realized. one more hat that I had to bring out. I will recuse myself for this one as well. As I'm an executive on that.
Thank you. And the recommendation here that the Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives Affected Areas Program, which I'm going to shorten that down for the remaining resolutions. Adjudications Committee recommendation that the Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society receives $86,775 for their project, Valemount Cares Phase 1. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, discussion.
Very, very excited.
You know, I was really, and I'll save my repeats for the rest of the program. I thought there was a really awesome response to the online public input forum. Doesn't replace the in-person, but I thought 270 some.
That's over Woodstock, right?
That's pretty cool. Further discussion? All in favor? Carries.
Do you want to do the reading while it's still subject?
Yeah, we can actually. Recommendation 6 of the CPT, CIP, AAP Adjudication Committee's recommendation that the Royal Canadian Legion Valemount branch number 266 receives $3,000 for their project. Bar upgrades be approved. Councillor McLean, Councillor Blanchette. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. I think I'll allocate you to comment for this one, please.
Number 2?
I thought I was going to get some steps in.
I'll just read out the recommendations. Councillor Pearson, we also did the 6th recommendation under the Valemount Legion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Recommendation that the CPT, CIP, AAP Adjudications Committee recommendation that the Valemount Area Recreation Development Association receives $40,380 for their project, Valemount Bike Park 2021 additions be approved, and with that, I will recuse myself as I'm a voting member of the board. Councilor Blanchard? Thank you.
Okay, can I get a mover? Okay, Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, any discussion? Comment? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Okay, thank you. For your information, it was moved forward.
Thank you. Recommendation 3, that the CBT CIP AAP Adjudications Committee recommendation that the Valemount Children's Activity Society receives $10,665, $10,665 for their project, infant toddler space expansion be approved on the condition that their other funding application for the same is unsuccessful. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. Recommendation 4, that the CBT CIP, I'll just get through the CIP AAP Adjudication Committee's recommendation that the Valemount Climbing Gym Club receives $28,450 for their project. Valemount Climbing Gym Phase 1 be approved. Councillor?
There be accused of only just we go to the benefit.
Very good. Thank you. Recommendation, mover, Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, discussion.
Saying something that
Oh, it's going
it's
to
gonna be
be, and bouldering is so much more safe than at heights, no structure gear required, just let anybody can get in.
and in town here, it's easy to close.
Indeed. All in favor? Carried. Now, before we continue, does anybody have any heads that maybe do your thing with this baby?
I know, right?
Yeah. Just like any other CDE, for your information, that's yours. And the last recommendation we'll hear tonight for the CBT CIP AAP Adjudications Committee. Recommendations that the Rosslyn Valley Spay and Neuter Society receives $5,000 for their project, Healthy Pets, Healthy Community, be approved. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carried. 8.4, Cleaner Task Force appointment. There is a recommendation that Colin James be appointed. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carried. 8.5, we do have some changes to the environmental management grant, contaminated sites to consider, and for tonight, that the report be received. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, discussion. Only on affected properties. All in favor? That's carried. 8.6, application from the Funky Goat Eatery for a vendor permit at an alternative location, 1170 Fifth Avenue, be given for the legally described Lot 2 DL 9778 Terrible District Plan PGP 35390 for up to 3 years. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, discussion. Councillor Pearson.
Just a quick question on on the wording of the header, alternative location. I'm just wondering why it specifies as an alternative location.
Mr. Robinson.
The reason why it's called alternative locations is the bylaw stipulates that mobile eateries can be placed on village land. So in order for it to be approved on an alternative location, it has to go through this process.
Okay.
Such as like private property.
Yes.
Thank you. Answers your question?
Yeah.
Further discussion? I know I was a staple for the longest time until the pandemic came along.
Yeah.
But looking forward to seeing you again. All in favor? Carried. Bylaws and policies, 9.1, Village of Valemount Council Procedure Bylaw. Number 834, 2020, amendment bylaw number 840, 2021, be adopted as presented. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion on final adoption? All in favor? It's carried. And 9.2, Village of Valemount Official Community Plan Bylaw number 843, 2021, be given first reading. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, discussion. Councillor Blanchette.
Just a lot of work has gone into this from everybody in the community. And I just wanted to thank everybody for all of their work and to really read through it. This is the first reading. And if there's any kind of issues or anything, then let staff know.
And we are published right on the homepage, I believe, and also in the left hand version of the budget. And I'm sure several social media posts later. Further discussion, Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, just a quick comment acknowledging, excuse me, Mr. John Grogan's an email with comments and stuff on the process. I'd just like to thank him for his input.
No, always accept, always welcome. Councillor John, for sure. Further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. And we do have under new business, a motion for consideration, and that is the bylaw enforcement officer position. Okay, I have, go ahead, Councillor.
I gather I read my, would have made it shorter. So whereas the village of Valemount continues to educate and enforce bylaw compliance within the village, and whereas the role of bylaw enforcement is currently being handled by the chief administrative officer in addition to regular job duties, and whereas the village of Valemount would benefit from a dedicated bylaw enforcement officer position, I move that staff prepare a report for council detailing costs, budget impacts, and any possible funding opportunities available to hire a full-time bylaw enforcement officer for the village of Valemount, and include a report on possible job description for full-time position.
Seconder, Councillor Blanchette. Discussion. So this follows up from the last notice of motion, correct, from the previous meeting. Councillor Blanchette.
Just to thank Councillor Pearson for bringing it forward. I think there'll be more discussion once we've got the report from staff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. And thank you, Councillor Pearson. All in favor? Carried. Any notices of motion this evening? Hearing none. Council reports. Councillor Pearson.
Okay.
I'll let you take it back from the warehouse process.
April 6th, we had what turned out to be an informal tourism meeting to shores of Cornwall. And it was a joint session with the Chamber of Commerce for a discussion on how we move forward, working together to promote Valemount and their recovery. Very cool. Yeah, it was a good discussion session. So, earlier today, had a community health collaborative, which was a very informative session with some very interesting people working towards a Valemount created personal health record system where people are able to access and control their own medical records. And it's something that's being done within our community to be put forward and implemented, and hopefully be a provincial system. It's very, very exciting news. And also, I would like to, excuse me, throw out a big thank you to McBride for their assistance during our most recent power outage. It's kind of new to me that they were able to provide our grid with power. It's a new improvement and a nice little backup being the cord we are at the end of the southern cord. So nice to have some options, and hopefully we didn't do any damage by running their generator at 120% for several hours.
Nice to see that council come online as well. Whereas ours is a relation. That's her.
That's all for me, guys.
Thanks very much, Councilor McCray.
I have had 3 online meetings with the Columbia River Treaty Local Government Committee since the last council, as we set priorities for 21 schedules and engage with Indigenous nations and give feedback to the negotiating team. That's all.
Still good. Yeah, nothing too big, just the Columbia River Treaty. Councilor Blanchett.
So I had a BCCRN presentation. That's the British Columbia Community Response Network, and they work with adults and they give aid to abuse, neglect, and self-neglect. So it was very, very interesting learning all of these different terms. I didn't know what self-neglect was. It was a lot. It was very well attended, and there was a lot of really good information that came out of there. And knowing that there's help out there for adults with these kinds of issues, it's important in the community because it's very prevalent here. I also had a meeting with tourism, and I think the Chamber and Tourism are going to work well together, knowing that they do work together. You know, we started to have a child and youth mental health meeting, and the clinic didn't have Wi-Fi, so some of us had a meeting and some of us didn't. I also had a meeting with United Way, which is very interesting because we discussed a whole bunch of different grant opportunities for different committees that I sit on, for myself and for the council ones too. So that was quite good. So I reached out to different partners saying, hey, did you know that there's this and there's this and there's this? So it's always good to meet with other stakeholders. Like Councilor Pearson said, we had the Community Health Collaborative today, and also too, one of the doctors there, he was talking about if we could get this to be not only provincial-wide, but Canada-wide, is what he was hoping for. And so I think it's really important that we are the owner of our own records. And so this is a huge project. It's a large undertaking. We've got a really good group of people that are really ready to do the work that needs to be done. And so if the community can just sort of keep their ears open, there will be more information as we come upon it. And we will be looking to them to give us some information back so that we can make this program for them, because we're all patients, so we all have some input into this program. And on the other side of that, all of the health professionals are also on the page, and so we need to get their information so that we can all work together for ourselves. So it's quite exciting. And I'd like to thank all of our Columbia Basin Trust committee members and Councillor G, who's been on that committee. It's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of rewarding work. So I just wanted to thank them all for this year's service on that committee.
Well done.
And that's it.
Thank you. March 24th, 5th, and 26th, days of Columbia Basin Trust board meetings. The morning of the 29th, a Zoom meeting with National Bond regarding connectivity. Later that morning, or sorry, early afternoon, tuned into the address from Dr. Bonner Henry regarding the new COVID restrictions being announced and enacted until April 19th. And then enjoyed peace and solemn from about 3:48 p.m. on March 29th to about 1800 on March 30th, because we had a North Thompson, Robson Valley-wide power outage. And much like during those kind of situations, just as a policymaker, you stay close, but stay afar with your phone on. And that worked until about 6:30 on the 30th when the cell tower started to go down. So lots to learn from there. Up until that point, had some really good updates from BC Hydro. Kept in touch with colleagues down the line to see how they were doing in their communities, what they were doing. Potential changes in the weather patterns, what we could expect coming this way. We really had no way of knowing. So something to be said about those plug-in phones. April 6th, a briefing with them on emergency services, although it was just Mr. Hopkinson and I. That day, folks were extremely busy. Again, on April 6th, I had a broadband meeting again with Emily Shirley Bond and some of her critic colleagues, particularly around connectivity and rural development. Seeing what we can do to really have the government really acknowledge some of the shortfalls we're seeing in rural and remote communities in terms of connectivity, especially through distance learning, community engagement, that sort of thing. April 8th, I attended the virtual annual conference of the Council of Forest Industries. Really condensed, but rewarding day through that conference. Followed there by a briefing with Municipal Affairs Minister Osborne and Dr. Lavoie, who's the acting deputy PHO. Again, 42 or 43 of our northern colleagues giving their feedback on vaccine rollout. And again, just another rewarding call, learning from other communities, seeing what they've gone through, to see how we can improve from each other. And that afternoon, Councillor Pearson and I gave, on behalf of council, a socially distanced birthday greetings for our oldest World War II vet, Mrs. Alice Olson. What she misses the most throughout the pandemic, her grandkids, great-grandchildren, probably your great-great-grandchildren, and bingo. So Councillor Pearson has to stay tuned. He's got something up his sleeve for that. And then that evening joined Member of Parliament Hawkins and Member of Parliament Zimmer for a war crime panel discussion. Also within that discussion were high-ranking members of the RCMP and several lead volunteers for Rural Crime Watch. April 12th, had a check-in yesterday with Linda LaFleur, who's our Columbia Basin Trust Relations for the Northwest. And then that afternoon, witnessed the opening of the 42nd BC legislature in Columbus Beach. Again, my comment from that is there was only a snippet mentioned about connectivity and for again, rural and remote communities. That's what we're missing the most. And then today, a good briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. PPE was a bit of a topic, not so much a problem now, but had we had the community outbreaks in April of 2020 that we're seeing today, some of our emergency services would not have been able to keep up with their personal protective equipment. So scary, but that's my report. Motion to proceed. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchard. Discussion, questions, comments on the reports. Councillor Blanchard.
So the connectivity, there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement on there. Is there any way you can move it faster? Because I mean, we're living in a world of Zoom now, and connectivity needs to be
For Valemount, we probably won't hear back from the Universal Broadband Fund likely 8 to 9 months after the application was submitted, early in March. So that's what, September, probably November-ish. In terms of Connect BC, we do have, although it's just NDIT administrating the program for the Connect BC, we do have a connection there through the NDIT. I think we just keep pushing, we keep pushing, and we keep pushing for the importance for rural and remote communities. There was a couple of announcements, Highway 14 and Highway 16 west, will in a very short time be fully cellular connected. So the highway tiers right from here to Highway will be connected. So good news there. There aren't a lot of cell phone outages from here to Prince George, but maybe through the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, there's a couple hit and miss, but
But for us, it's heading east. No mention of that in that announcement. Mostly Smithers and Harris. We'll just connect the two through that region, November, Houston, and those little cellular shades. Councilor Pearson?
Yeah, and this sort of touch on both those comments. I really feel there's an appetite for a debriefing with emergency operations after the power outage. For our community to lose internet and cell coverage during an emergency is unacceptable. And there is no explanation or apologies on the part of TELUS for the drop. I was pretty surprised to not be able to access my phone to see how long the power outage was going to be or to make the call. So I think it would be worth having a general debrief with the emergency operations. Luckily, McBride was able to come online in the morning and get power to the seniors of Golden Years Lodge, but that was still 17 hours into it. So, I think we have a lot of items to look at in that situation, and we've been very fortunate with not having a long outage for some time. I know I was caught, my generator was wall dry. It was not even making a start.
And it wasn't -20.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of calls that I made and received that day where folks were down to 5, 4, 5, 6 degrees. Not freezing, not pipes bursting, but again, not -20 outside of it. But certainly something to be average, I think. Any questions for me further? I think Valemount will also specific health file. How's that different from the health e-file system that's currently in place? Councilor
I'll speak to that. So the Healthy Life is a currently operating portal. People can sign up and get their basic reports and stuff like that. Its functionality is somewhat limited. And that's where it's been kind of interesting on the committee, because I was assigned sort of to the communication subcommittee to get the word out. But there's also a second portal out there that's My Health Key, which is in an operation in a couple of private clinics in Prince George, but not on a provincial basis. So we kind of thought we were going to go that way, but it's a very fluid situation. So now the discussion is that we look at creating a system that will work for us, what we want, versus buying a vendor-based program and seeing if it's going to cover all the bases. So that's the basic difference in a nutshell. So.
Right, and Healthy Life is one-way traffic. You get the information, you can't ask any questions. Healthy Key is gonna be a two-way street.
Yeah.
Right, you can ask a question and get a response back. So those are the differences too, but don't forget, that's just in Northern Health. Right. So,
Yeah, and that's another big stumbling block is the way our provincial health system was set up with independent health authorities, none of whom share information well and don't talk well. So, and we all know people in the community that have to travel out of town for procedures and tests. Well, those records don't show up under Northern Health, personal health records. And that's something we want a solution to. We want all of our records in one place on your phone, or as was stated today in our meeting, you can show up at a hospital in Ontario and you have your personal health records with you.
and we're asking for
That's our
advocacy as well. We want to be able to have, you know, if you're taking your mother to the doctor, you've got her health records as well. Read them.
We took that issue to the Minister of Health, Terry Lake, in 2015,
Mhm.
about the various health regions unable or unwilling to communicate.
It's been very frustrating. I mean, you know, and especially dealing with people in the community that had life altering conditions and not be able to, once they get home and they have regular blood work, not be able to get those all work and numbers that they need to take care of their own health.
Continue pushing the issue.
Working on it.
Awesome. Further discussion? All in favor, proceed. Carried. Is there any public comments received under 14.1?
There are no public comments.
We are not proceeding in camera. Just a comment on that. It's probably the largest window that I've been part of where we have not proceeded in camera in my short career. So well done, keeping everything as above board as we can. And so I'll ask for a motion for adjournment. Councilor Pearson.